And Ryan, it's absolutely brilliant to have Ryan on board with us, well, or skis, as it may be this evening. Ryan works at Heavenly, I believe you're in Heavenly right now, is that correct?
I am at work.
Awesome. And you're one of the training manager at Heavenly Resort. And you're, for those of you who aren't familiar with PSIA, that's the American instructor system, so Professional Ski Instructors Association of America. Back in the day, I believe the British system used to be called the Professional British Ski Instructor Association, something like that. So, you know, some close ties there. And you're big into the freestyle end of things. You know, you're, I believe, a demo team member on the freestyle side. So it's an absolute privilege to have you with us this evening. And I'll be recording the session so other people can enjoy it further down the line, and we can sort out after the fact and get you that recording to use as you see fit. Feel free to introduce yourself, and the floor is yours from here. I've already enabled screen share, I believe.
Sweet. Nice meeting you guys. Thanks for inviting me. I don't know, what are we, 13 years, Greg, that we've known each other. We share a birthday. I'm slightly younger than Greg, but we do share a birthday. We started at North Star together, or I started at North Star. I don't know how long he was there before me. But yeah, I've been skiing my whole life. I grew up ski racing. And then when the park and pipe became a thing, I kind of dove into that. And I didn't want to follow the normal career path. So I moved to Tahoe where I could ski every day, get better at it and teach. And yeah, now I get to make a career out of it. Yeah, the training manager here at Heavenly, and I also oversee the competition team and services there. So I guess before we get going, are we split discipline, ski, snowboard, or is everybody skiers, everybody snowboarders? What are we working with?
Shout if you're a snowboarder.
Yeah.
Hey. You. Shout if you're a skier.
Yeah. Okay,
maybe a bit
perfect.
half and half.
Sweet. So I guess what we'll jump into is, and I need to share my screen before I do that. Is anybody familiar with PSIA, ASI, and kind of what we've been doing on the fundamentals side of things? Like, it's been around for a little bit. If you guys know about it, there's an event every 4 years called Interski, where we travel around the country as a bunch of ski instructors meet up and we talk about what our country's doing, and in between, you know, hanging out and partying, we ski and engage and share our message. And skiing, it started with the ski team, the alpine team, with the fundamentals. We have these 5 core fundamentals that we talk about. And then as we had some success with that, the snowboard side brought that in. So even though this is ski specific, all of the fundamentals apply to snowboard as well. There's just a little bit of verbiage, and you guys have one more fundamental than we do. And that's because snowboarders, you guys can torsionally flex your board, and we can't do that because we're strapped to different things. So you guys have that ability to create like twist in the board that we can't in skis. But so all of this still does apply, and I will say that it is ski videos, so hopefully you guys enjoy them. And where this really started was, you know, when I got into skiing, ski racing was the only thing. You know, I mean, it was how people got into it. Snowboarders were still not totally allowed on the mountain at every resort. And actually the first park that I grew up in was actually a snowboard park. Like, skiers were not allowed. So we had to poach it for a change, and we got chased off the mountain by those guys. And then as you know, I mean, people have had easier access to the mountain, technology has changed. So now, you know, we find people exploring different parts of the mountain, and that's where like park and pipe is really, you know, I mean, with the X Games, and now it's in the Olympics, as well as, you know, big mountain. Those are kind of the 3 areas that we now cater to. And as far as ski instructors come in, those are the people that are coming into our organizations and our industries, right? Like they're hooked on the sport, and now they want to figure out how to make a living doing this. So they're traveling around and skiing, and then they're like, well, now I want to make some money and I want to keep doing this. How do I do it? And so now it's no longer just, ex-racers coming to us. It's the jibbers, and it's the ones that want to send it. And so for us, I think it's important that, we cater to them. And the cool thing about our fundamentals is they're true no matter what. If I'm in the park, if I'm in Big Mountain, or if I'm, trying to do some sort of, like just super high performance skiing and riding, they're still there. And how we utilize them kind of affects that, and they still exist. So I challenge a lot of people that, snowboarding, it's a part of your culture. Like you guys, when you're going through the exam process, you go into the park and pipe, and you have to show some competency there. The Alpine side in PSIA, that is not the case. Like I have level 3 staff. I have people that work for me as trainers and examiners that I would not trust to take a group through the park because they don't understand the etiquette. But they've achieved this high level in the Alpine side of things. And so my role has been, getting people comfortable that aren't comfortable with it. Like, you actually do know some stuff. You just don't know some stuff. And I also think that, for me, freestyle, it challenges us to get creative. It challenges us to push the limits of not only, our sport and what we think is fun and exciting, but also the equipment itself. Whoever the first person that did like a nose roll, like on their board, was like, oh, this is fun. And then they start tweaking things, and now we're, knuckle hucks is a thing in the X Games now because people are getting that crafty with the sport. And I think that, through that challenge of, what is my body capable of? What is my equipment capable of? We just become better skiers and riders. So I encourage people to get into freestyle or at least dabble, and find it. So our first fundamental, and by first, I mean just the first one I wrote down, there's not like an order of operations of which one's more important than the other, is our ability to move our center of mass along the length of the equipment. So for skiers, that's fore and aft. For snowboarders, that's your lateral, like nose to tail, right? That's a fundamental we have to do in some way, shape, or form. And we do this a lot in our jumping world. I don't know if you guys have seen, I'm sure many of you have drawn this picture in the snow at some point in time. You've said like, all right, like this is how we want to move, like let's move to the apex of this turn. This is the shape we're making. This is where I direct my center of mass. If you haven't drawn this in the snow, then you're probably new to teaching. But I'm pretty sure this is probably the most common thing I draw in the snow. And we talk a lot about where we move our center of mass, where we project it, right? When we're on the snow, it's lateral, but it's over there somewhere, and that keeps us moving down the hill. Well, when we're going off a jump, it's the same thing. Like the fundamentals is I need to move my center of mass to the apex of my arc. So instead of my arc being over here, it's now up here. So has anybody gone off a jump and landed like tail heavy or on their back foot and got the like slap of the board down? You can just nod your heads. Or if you've never been off a jump, let me know. But that's often the same results when we're starting a new turn. If we have a very aggressive vertical movement, our equipment keeps going. We are going up and our equipment is going away from us. And now we finish our turn aft and we're trying to play catch up. Same thing off a jump. If I don't pop myself up and forward into the direction that I'm trying to go, I'm going to land on my tails. And if it's a really big jump, I might actually land on my ass. And that's not comfortable, right? So again, just thinking I'm moving and I need to move forward but I also need to move up and forward, and how we do that is always coming into play. The ability to direct, oh, it's the same thing. So yeah, sorry. I thought we were on the next slide already. So butters, like anybody comfortable with butters? Like if you've played with butters, right? So that is a way that we like overcook a fundamental, you know, like my goal is to get all of my weight over the nose of my skis or the tail of my skis or board and hang out there, right? So, I mean, the same moves I'm making when I'm skiing and riding where I move along the length, I might move forward at the start, but then as I'm skiing, I settle somewhere in the middle to engage the whole equipment. Like if you only hang out in the front, what happens? You bend that part and the tail's gone and washy, right? So you don't get that performance. Well, that's what's fun about butters is we get to hang out and challenge it. And I mean, if you've ever tried to do this on skis or a snowboard, like it's a workout, you know? I mean, it's not easy to one, it's easy, you know, it's easy to get there. You just put your weight there, but then how do I stay there, right? So if we watch these guys as they're cruising around, they're sending all of their weight forward, getting on it, and then they're just living there, you know? And I mean, that is like, if you've ever tried this, like your hamstrings for skiers, like, I mean, like I'm always scared of just like ripping a hamstring right out of my cheeks and finding it down near my Achilles. But yeah, you know, I mean, it's just a way to get crafty and have some fun. And it's changed ski technology a lot. Like, I don't know if you guys have been on, you know, ski equipment, but now they're making softer skis, and then you see that mustache rocker come into play on skis and boards. Now they've got, you know, I mean, that allows for a little bit more flex to make it easier, but you know, I mean, that's one example of how you can take, you know, the ability to move along the length of the ski and just overcook it and have some fun with it. You know, I mean, it's a lot of work and it challenges us, but I mean, there's times where, I mean, we got some fresh snow finally, like Tahoe, normally we get a lot that we haven't been. And I mean, there was a few times where I was over the nose, like, because I wasn't expecting it to be as deep as it was. But because I can do that on my twin tips, I now know how to get back from that as well. So, I mean, again, it creates that ability to kind of get just crafty, but also helps us with our skiing and riding. The next fundamental we have in PSIA is the ability to direct pressure from foot to foot, right? So for us in skiing, this is our lateral one. Snowboards, you guys have one that's along the width of the board, so you guys have heel to toe, and then skiers, we have foot to foot. And normal skiing, I'd say that, you know, we're anywhere from a basic parallel up to a high performance turn. Like we are, I mean, it needs to be on the outside ski. You know, I mean, one of our tasks for skiers is stork turns, where we pick up the inside ski throughout the turn. I mean, that's just normal. And when we're sliding on boxes and rails, it's similar, you know. I mean, how many people have been caught on the uphill foot of a rail, or snowboarders been caught on your uphill edge because you weren't managing that, you know, keeping that pressure, you know, moving towards whether your heel or toe. I don't know if you're doing a front or back board, but if you don't kind of keep the pressure going with it, and you end up, and then you fall and you slide out. So it's similar there. I mean, these are ways we do it. We need to balance. But where we're a little different, these were brothers and sisters. They're really close. The ability to create angulation. So how are we putting the skis on edge? That comes through a combination of what we call inclination, which would be like my whole body tipping over, and then angulation, where I'm tipping my legs over and I'm keeping my spine vertical, right? So that's kind of, we're creating that. We we don't get on a flat ski very often or a flat board very often when we're turning, right? Like when we're trying to point it and get across the flats, and you know you're trying to carry speed, like, but we're moving in the direction of travel. Where it's different is when we get onto a box or a rail. Now I'm flat and I'm going, you know, perpendicular to the direction of travel. So when I get into that front board, back board, or I call it a skier slide, when we get sideways, we're trying to be flat. Like how many people have ended up on, if you're a skier, like ended up on your hip after hitting a box or a rail? And it's because our first go-to is to put the skis on edge, because if I'm on skis and I'm flat trying to slide, I'm going to build up a little bit of snow below me, and I'm going to catch, I'm going to high side, and then I'm going to break my collarbone, and it sucks. Like, I mean, we've all seen somebody do it where they're coming around, they catch their downhill edge. Same thing on a snowboard. If you're trying to do a, you know, heel side slip and you get too flat, you dig your toes in, and now you're going, you know, forward or backwards if you're doing a heel, you know, a toe side slip, right? So I would actually argue that those that are better at sliding boxes and rails are more aware of their surface, the surface that their ski and boards are doing, and have more control, because we can get flat while going perpendicular. Whereas again, back to like my trainers that are, you know, full cert ski instructors that aren't comfortable in the park, as soon as they hit a box or a rail, they're on their ass. They're doing this right here, right? So boom, like first move, like if we watch this over and over a couple of times, skis are landing on their uphill edges. He's not able to get flat, right? So what happens? The weight's behind. So if we go back to the fundamental before, where we're talking about the ability to put weight from foot to foot, he's landing on his uphill ski too. So now not only is he on edge, so he's not flat, so he's not over his feet, but he's on the uphill one. So now, like, if back to normal skiing, like that's entry level stuff. Like we always, you know, talk about, can I turn my feet, yes or no? And then am I on my outside foot or am I on my inside foot? And if I'm on my inside foot, you know, I can come by and just tap you and you'll fall right over. So, you know, get over the downhill foot, that's normal for us, but also the ability to get flat on this while being perpendicular, I'd say is something that park skiers or people comfortable in the park are better at. You guys have any questions so far? If anybody has anything, let me know. Feel free to jump in. So this is some guys in Colorado that, you know, if we're looking, so back to the two fundamentals we're talking about, the ability to balance over the outside ski or the downhill foot, and then also the ability to keep the skis flat through the body. So if we watch these guys, you know, if you watch his shoulders, like he lines up over his feet, and then right there you can see his shoulder dip down. So that's helping him keep his skis flat. Again, right there, as soon as he rolls over, he goes with it. He almost didn't make it. But you can also see them, like they're over that downhill foot just a little bit. Like their skis are relatively flat. So we'll watch it again, but you can see that they do have a little bit more weight on that downhill foot. So again, that's normal everyday stuff, like for us skiing and riding. But what's harder is keeping the skis flat, especially through these transitions. You can see his back foot is actually lifting up right there. So, but yeah, so again, like the fundamentals still apply. Balance over the outside ski a little bit. Where we have to work a little harder is trying to keep our gear flat, because we never really try to keep our gear flat. Like even like, I mean, spring riding, if you guys do open up in April, I mean, you got all that moisture coming to the top, and then it just suctions your equipment right to it, you know? So even there, like I'm trying to feather a little bit just so I don't, you know, create that suction between the skis and my snow. So I'm trying not to be flat. I think the only time I'm really trying to be flat is when I'm racing. So like I don't know, that's where that is. We have one, regulate the magnitude of pressure created through snow interaction. So far we've had pressure along the length, which for skiers is fore and aft. For snowboarders is lateral. We've had pressure from foot to foot. For skiers, that's our lateral. For snowboarders, it's along the width of your board. So that's your fore and aft, at least biomechanically. And then now we have one more fundamental around pressure, and that's dealing with kind of the forces between, you know, like when we bend our equipment, we get a lot of energy out of it, right? So when we're doing those high performance turns, like if any of you have ever ski raced or watched ski racing, or like border cross, skier cross, like we're on fist gear, like slalom skis that are meant to bend, and when they bend and release, like they help accelerate us, you know, forward, and we keep moving, right? So we have to manage that. Or if we're skiing moguls, you know, does anybody like skiing moguls? I don't. Like, I can do them on my snowboard, but it's not pretty. But I mean, it's just a lot of work, because now you know, I mean, if you guys ever watch those cartoons where that one dude has, like, he's walking on the like sidewalk, 1 foot on the sidewalk, 1 foot in the street, you know, like that's kind of what moguls feels like, where you got tips and tails on one, and then you're bouncing in between the middle. So now, like, the snow is actually bending my equipment and making me have to manage it. And so how do we do that? That's that, you know, I mean, we're flexing and extending. We're allowing our equipment to come under us, or we're trying to push it away from us. So we're vertical pressure now. So we have fore and aft, lateral, and vertical pressure movements that we manage. Half pipe is the same thing. I mean, it's like skiing a giant mogul, right? Like we're coming across, and then as you go up, your skis and board are bending through that transition. And then we get to the top of that transition, and we have to try to manage that as we're releasing. And, you know, I mean, the goal, do you guys have pipes in Scotland that are out in the UK? I don't know.
Technically we have a few times, but in practice, 90% of the time it's a no, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a bummer. Like, Vocal is my ski sponsor, and they have like the top podiums in half pipe, and they're even like, half pipe's dying. I mean, it's still around because it's the easiest watch sport in our industry, because you can see the whole event from the grandstands. It's a 600-foot pipe, you know, so you can see the whole thing, and it's awesome. Whereas if you go to like a downhill race or a slope style, you get to see like 2 features and then they're gone, you know. So there's not as many pipes as we can get out there, but if you do get out there, I encourage you to. But what's one thing that's unique about pipe is how we, you know, release and manage that pressure. And it's not a traditional pop, you know, like it's not also like that sucking it up, because if I pop off the wall, I push myself in. So it's more of this like standing strong, stay tight, and like hold it. And then when you're in the air, you just kind of pull your legs in. And then when you're coming down, you put them back out for landing, and then you come back down. And if you push off, you land lower than you want. Or if you don't stand against that wall and stay strong against it, you're still moving towards the wall when you leave the ground, which results in you landing on the top of the pipe, which I don't know which one hurts more. I've done them both. So, but it's, you know, I mean, skiing half pipe is like the pressures you feel is like when you're skiing is high performance, like medium radius turns that you can do, like similar forces on the body. And it's a lot of fun. Skiers, or I'd say less, like ski instructors are less scared to get in there, because it feels like actual skiing. You don't have to leave the ground. Right. So we'll watch that. Just so you know, he is okay. He was like 14 when he did it. He bent his forearm. I didn't even know you could do that. He competed that day, got second place. So like he was stoked. So he didn't manage that as well as the rest of them. So yeah, we got 3 fundamentals around pressure. So far, we've got one fundamental around how are we creating edges, and that's, you know, again, it's the whole body or bending specific body parts and creating those angles in our joints, keeping something. And then our last fundamental for skiers is, and snowboard, you guys word this one different than we do. And I actually like your wording sometimes better than I like our wording. But so control the skis rotation with leg rotation separate of the upper body. And the upper body is my pelvis upwards. So anything attached to my pelvis above is my upper body. My femurs are my lower body. And normally, like, this is it for 90% of the skiing we do out there, it makes sense. You know, like to turn my feet, I need to have something anchored, and that's where my core is. So, like, you know, by engaging my front core, side core, back core, and trying to keep my pelvis stable, that allows for me to twist my legs against my upper body. And it makes sense. And in snowboarding, I see you guys do that a lot too, where we're starting that rotation move lower in the body, and then the upper body might follow. You guys, snowboarders, you word it, rotation comes from a combination of flexion and extension. So it's very generic, but I like that it's generic because when I'm going to go off a jump and spin, I can't spin with my legs. Like that's just physics don't work that way. Like I have to create rotation in my upper body, right? So that's the only way to go off a jump. I don't know if you guys have ever gone up, like playing around on something. If you get in the air and then try to spin, like if you guys were to do it right now, like jump and then try to spin, it doesn't happen. Like you might get part of your body around, or you might be able to turn your feet, but your upper body doesn't go, or you might turn your upper body, but your feet don't go. Like it just doesn't work, right? So normally 90% of the time it's okay. You know, I mean, I'd say first time hitting a box, I wouldn't encourage the separation. I would encourage what we're going to talk about. But if we look at the why, so why I rotate my legs separate of the upper body is so that I have an anchor point to twist from, well, rotate from. I have that ability. Whereas if I don't have that anchor in my upper body, then I have to start with my shoulders, then my hips go, and then finally my feet go. Whereas other way around, if I can keep this solid, I can turn my feet. And that's where we talk about skiing in and out of counter. But when I'm going to go off a jump, like even in this little picture right here, you guys can see that his legs are going straight, and he's starting to open his body a little bit. And same idea applies. Like, so I'm just making my pelvis down my anchor. So as soon as I'm ready to go off the jump, it's set and just set. It's solid. And then I can do whatever I want with my upper body. And then as soon as I release and get into the air, the lower body reconnects with my upper body and follows me around. So like that's, I mean, and you guys can see it where he gets to that spot where skiing around, and then anchors his lower body, sets his path, and then is able to twist the upper body to create the rotation. So even though it's like, it's not how it's worded, the why is still the same. Like I need an anchor to be able to rotate from. If I don't have that anchor, I'm not going to be able to create rotation. And or it's going to take me a lot longer. So like that upper body rotation, my feet are anchored so I can turn my shoulders, then the shoulders will get my hips, and then finally I get my feet to go, and then that's when my skis finally start going across the hill, and that's why when we're skiing and riding, we focus on turning the legs versus turning the upper body, because it makes it happen then and there. So those are the alpine. What's up?
Just something to just bring this up, and this is one of the wee mysteries of the differences between skiing and snowboarding in the American system. Snowboarding, we regard the hips and the pelvis as lower body, whereas skiers consider it upper body, and it can be quite confusing for some people. We see the thorax and the spine as the breaking part between upper body and lower body, whereas skiers see their hips as still being upper body, and it's quite confusing for people who come from skiing into snowboarding and snowboarding into skiing. It's something you have to sit down and say, okay, things are just a little bit different, and they ask why. And sometimes you don't know why. It's just how things are. That's how skiers do it. That's how snowboarders do it.
Yeah, and that's why I like the way the snowboard team worded their rotation, and its rotation comes from a combination of flexion and extension movements. And the reason I like that better than the way we do it is because on the alpine side, we're pigeonholed. Like, you know, I mean, I have to connect dots to people to make sense of how to create, like if I'm going to do a spin, and that's back to, you know, I mean, the guys that wrote our fundamentals on the alpine side aren't park people, you know, like they don't have a history of park and pipe. And so when the snowboard team sat down and created the verbiage for their fundamentals, it was, I mean, because there's plenty of times where I see a snowboarder, like especially super dynamic, they're doing something with their lower leg, and then, you know, and then it works its way up the body. And then there's times where upper body rotation, and, you know, I mean, like when I'm going to go do a nose butter, like that's 100% upper body rotation. And for you guys, you leave it so much more vague. And that's why I steal it. Like, so when I'm doing, like I'm going to Bear Valley or Big Bear in Southern California in a couple of weeks, and I'm doing a freestyle exam, and I tell the skiers, I'm like, just use the snowboard fundamental around rotation, because it's more, it allows for more leeway. And yeah, it is a big difference. But I would say that, you know, 90% of the skiing that we do down the mountain, big mountain, you know, like skiing moguls, like turning the legs first is always going to get a better result. It's going to take longer for me to do something with my upper body. And then the other exception would be super high performance ski racing, watching top athletes who are, you know, those skis have a designated radius. So right now GS radius is 30 meters is what the ski is designed for. And the course is somewhere between 24 and 28 meter turns. So now you got somebody my size, I'm 5'10", 170 pounds. I can't just step on a GS ski and make it turn. Like, I got to do something. And that's where you see some of these like super high end athletes like Ted Ligety doing weird upper body things, but it's to make the ski do it. And I think in teaching skiing and snowboarding, we talk about efficiency different. Greg, and you just made me think about this, is where we talk about efficiency and how do I get performance and ski the way I want to ski, but how do I do that all day long? Whereas ski racers, they get a warm-up run, a slip run, and then they ski 2 runs. The goal is to get to the bottom of the run as fast as they can, you know. So like as far as efficiency goes, their efficiency is fastest one down with both their skis on at the end wins. And ours is, I want to ski this big mountain terrain, but I want to make like 6-7 runs and enjoy the powder. And, you know, how do I make it last longer? And so now we, you know, when we're trying to be, you know, park and pipe or racing, we might do things different, and that's okay. But we know how to use those fundamentals the other way. The only other fundamental that snowboard has, I mentioned it earlier, is you guys have the ability to twist. So where you know, pull one foot up or push one foot down or vice versa. Like, and it's worded, you create twist in the board through flexion and extension movements. I mean, it's the same as the rotation, but it's different performance than what we're looking for in there. So like those are our fundamentals that we have in the US. People get super hung up on them, like verbatim, but I mean, really the goal is, the way I like to think about it is, what do I want my ski to do, my board to do? Like, am I making a high performance short radius turn, or am I going to slide a box sideways? So that's the goal. The fundamentals are what am I doing with my body to make that happen, right? So as we go back through these, like on, you know, like managing the center of mass along the length, like the goal is I just need to move forward and aft, right? But what am I trying to accomplish? You know, am I trying to do a nose butter where I just move all of my center of mass forward and I stay there? Or am I skiing moguls where at the start of a turn I'm driving my tips down, but then at the end of the turn I'm probably behind my skis and playing catch up, you know? And so like it's different, and they're designed to be vague so that all I need to know is that I need to manage my body fore and aft and to help me bend the ski. I need to be able to balance foot to foot. I'm not telling you how much foot to foot. If I'm doing a high-end carve, like bending the ski, 90% of my weight's on my outside ski. If I'm trying to slide a box, I'm probably like 55-45, just keeping it pretty mellow and flat, right? So we're not telling you how much. Combination of inclination and angulation. Am I making like a super short turn where I'm doing a lot of work in the ankles and then getting that little bit of, you know, out of the tib fib and into the knees? Or am I doing, you know, a big mountain, like just big carve where I'm, you know, my spine's vertical and my legs are long? So again, it's pretty vague, but I need to be able to keep one part of my body vertical and bend another part of my body to create edge. Or you can just tip everything over. It's not super ideal, but it works sometimes. Every now and then we need to do it. I need to be able to manage the pressure from the snow. If I'm making a basic parallel turn or an entry, you know, to turning, not a lot of pressure is coming from the skis because everything's flat. We're not bending it. As soon as I get into moguls, start bending the ski through high performance turns, get into the half pipe, now we're getting a lot of energy, and now I have to figure out how to manage that. But I can suck it up. I can press against it. Or I can do a combination of both where I'm flexing a little bit and extending a little bit. So we're not, again, not telling you how. I'm just telling you that you need to be able to manage pressure that's going to come up from the snow. And then, yeah, rotation. I need to be able to turn my legs in the event case of park and pipe. I might do it different. I steal from snowboard and I'm, you know, flexing my spine and, you know, extending in different ways. But like, I still need to be able to create separation of rotation, you know, like, can I keep something still and turn something? Like those are the things that here in the US we've decided no matter what, those 5 things, 6 for snowboarders, are present in all aspects of skiing and riding. And how you need to do it is up to you. Like, and that's where it's, you know, am I trying to, I mean, it's really, what do I want the ski to do? That's if I'm going to leave you guys with anything, what do you want your ski or snowboard to do? And then the fundamentals are, how am I going to achieve that with my body? What's that body performance look like to make that happen? And that's how I start breaking down tasks for exams, like, and get people thinking that way. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, yeah, please jump in. Hope it made sense.
Thanks, Ryan. And, you know, like, you've got, I'm sure, the sort of layer of instructor lingo and the layer that you use with like regular everyday customers. Do you ever find that there's some like easy ways to sort of take that sort of instructor manual level of understanding? Like, say you're trying to get a butter going, like I can butter okay in a snowboard, but I found butter in skis, they tend to just tip over to one side or like slide away from each other and things like that. And I start freaking out because I think my legs are going to get all fangled up together. Have you lost me?
We lost you right when you were asking how to make it simple.
All right. Well, basically, is there any sort of shortcuts you've experienced? Like, I don't know, take butters, for example, for just explaining how that center of mass moves around in a sort of layman's way.
I mean, honestly, I just drop all the words like center of mass. You know, I don't tell somebody that they have to get their center of mass, because then you have to explain it to, you know, and if it's a dude that does all leg day and skips upper body is a little lower, or dude that's egg on toothpicks, you know, like center mass, like I just, you know, get rid of it. And I just tell them, I mean, I'll ask them, I'll be like, I want you to try to bend your nose. Like, just what do you have to do to make this part of the equipment, like, and I'll grab it and, you know, just be like, how do I just want to bend right here. What do we have to do to make that happen? You know, and you watch them start to go, and then we add stuff, you know. So like for me, when I was learning how to butter on a snowboard, it was easy to shift over the nose, but it was hard to bend it. So for me, it was then I start working, you know, somebody, it was probably Greg actually, was like, well, bring your back leg with you, you know, like tighten up, you know, and it was like, then all of a sudden it's moving, you know, that way. Same thing with the skiing. I'll be like, all right, get over the nose. And they do, but then they break at the waist, you know, and then it's like, okay, well now keep like plank. Remember that? Like planking before it was an exercise and people would just go out and do it. Like, you know, get over the nose, but keep your body straight, or tighten the hamstrings. You know, and because, I mean, unless you're working with little kids, everybody knows what their hamstrings are because they've pulled one doing something stupid at one point in time in their life. But yeah, I just try to get them to get there and then work backwards and add words in as needed.
Yeah, and we have a lot of artificial slopes in the UK that's a plastic surface. It's really high friction, which makes it a lot easier to learn to butter because the stuff's not sliding out from under you while you're trying to get it right. And you've often got a fence at the side that you can grab a hold of and get them to slide the gear out to one side and be like, yeah, you can feel the bend without falling over. That can be really helpful, but especially if you're over East Coast USA, they're going to slide out from under you real quick. I still remember trying to copy a guy doing, I don't know what it's called, like kangaroo with your ski tips and like walk around like that. That's like one of my all-time goals. If I could do that on skis, I would be like legend, you know. I'll let other people ask questions.
If you're looking for like learning like the basics of freestyle, is there like any good like YouTube or anything online that like you would recommend to look at?
Greg, do you have a copy of our freestyle manual? I wonder if I'd be able to get you guys some of that.
Well, not over here. All my books are back in Tahoe.
I think I've got a copy.
If I might be able to reach out to our office and get a digital copy that you guys can have access to. We give them out at Interski, so I mean, I know we have links, but I mean, I honestly avoid YouTube. I avoid, in these cases only, like if I'm gonna go rebuild my kitchen, I'll watch YouTube for days. But like if I'm trying to learn how to ski, it's like those old Go with the Pro tricks on like Powder magazine. You're like, yeah, so I'm learning cork 7, like, so I'm just gonna like really like spin it hard to the left, and then I'm gonna dip my shoulder and bring my feet in, and I'm like, that's gonna get some kid killed, you know. So I am afraid of those things. I will say that PSIA does have a freestyle learning e-learning course coming out that I might be able to get you access to. But I mean, really the best way is like, you know, I mean, go with somebody like, I mean, I don't know anybody else on this call other than Greg. But, you know, I mean, Greg knows the basics of freestyle and like how to ride, and just find a little group of, you know, somebody working on figuring out how to do the basic boxes. Don't go with some dude that's going to take you into the big park and want to send it, because that won't work. But yeah, I mean, YouTube can be tough. But we are working on that content. But I'll see if I can get you a copy of our freestyle manual, because it has a lot of beginner, entry level, up to like intermediate progressions in there for all elements of freestyle ski and snowboard.
If I had to say, I don't know about skiing, but for snowboard, if there was one I would recommend, is snowboardaddiction.com. Nev Lapworth really breaks his stuff down really well, and his visuals and how he describes stuff's really good. He actually helped me to do threes. Some of his diagrams and how he does things is really good. I don't know about skiing though.
Does he not have ski addiction as well, or was that a flash in the pan?
I'm not sure. I still
there's ski addiction. I don't know if this is kind of, you've already answered this one, but Stomp It tutorials is one I quite like. And I was going to ask, so being more thorough, linking things to the fundamentals, it seems like part of the kind of growing legitimacy of freestyle as a discipline. And I certainly feel like that kind of legitimacy is encouraging more people from a more conservative background, perhaps, to take freestyle more seriously and kind of get a feeling that it's something that can be done in a way which isn't taking ridiculous risks. It can be done in quite a methodical way, and just, you know, kind of focus on technicalities, and that's maybe a way to bring people in. You know, thinking about talking about butters, I mean, I think that's linking in the technique to start at a race, doing a racing start. A pole start is kind of it's basically halfway to a peanut butter. Just wonder what your thoughts on that were.
I know a lot of people that have been against it. They're like, oh, I mean, they're against the X Games, you know, and they're like, you know, you're causing so many injuries. But when you look at the facts, like, there's no more injuries. Like, you know, I mean, just listening to my patrol calls all day, you know, I mean, there's no more injury. There's actually less injuries in the park than there are people skiing around the mountain. What they see is they see the fear, and they don't see the time and effort that people put into it. And so when I'm working with instructors that at this point of, because it's back to the culture side of things, like they didn't, you know, Glenn Plake was there, you know, like, oh, he's just crazy, you know, and you know, it's now he's an examiner for Western Division, you know, like, but I educate them on the pathway. Like, so when I was overseeing North Star's free ski team and coaching those kids, like, I mean, we would spend hours, like days, weeks in indoor training facilities learning how to tumble. Like, I mean, not even before trampolining, I was teaching them how to fall so that they knew how to roll. And like, that was our warm up. Greg used to go to that with us, like when Stars, like, you know, we used to do this tumbling routine for a half hour. And the kids thought it was fun and exciting, and it was a warm-up. But for me, it was teaching them how to fall so that when they tried their first big trick on snow, they knew how to fall. But then you go to the trampolines, and the trampolines to foam pits, and then you have the roller skis to foam pits, and then skis to airbags. And they don't see that, you know, they just figure that they learned how to ski on the mountain like everybody else. Whereas the top athletes, like, they're spending, you know, I mean, so much of their like off season indoors familiarizing themselves with a trick. So by the time they go and throw a trick on snow for the first time, they've done it thousands of times. Like the trick isn't new, it's just new to snow. And educating them on that a little bit. And, you know, because I mean, honestly, ski racing has more injuries than park and pipe does, because of, you know, I mean, somebody falls, they hit the B-net, and then as soon as you hit the B-net, your ski gets caught and you break a leg, you know. I mean, we don't have that injury rate. And so I educate them, and in our traditional ski world, we have that, you know, like new skill, old terrain, new terrain, old skill, you know, like I'm not teaching somebody something new on new terrain. Like we have this model where we're stepping them in, and it's the same thing. Park, we have outside in. I'm teaching somebody how to get flat on their gear out in the snow, pretending to do it, you know, in a box I drew in the snow. I'm teaching somebody how to ski switch outside the park and then taking it into the park. We're doing 180s to, you know, like a 90-degree rotation, butter it around, ski backwards. All of that happens out of the park. And when you start getting people into our, you know, into the freestyle, and you see that they see the progression, because I just think they don't know the progression. You know, they all know how to get to ski racing. It's, you know, I need to become good, dynamic, athletic. I need to, you know, they try new skis, and then it's like, all right, now I'm going to run gates for the first time. And it's like, they already know how to do this, whereas they don't see that. And so I think I get a lot of buy-in when I do that, you know, especially being able to connect them to the fundamentals they already know and say, look, you already know how to do this. You can go off this jump because I'm just managing my center of mass fore and aft. Like I'm going to go here and land there. Like I'm going there. Like normally we're going there. Now we're going here. And they're like, oh, okay. But you know, freestyle just has that element of, you got to pull the trigger. Like I'm going to hit this jump for the first time, you know, and they may be able to relate to that. Like if they remember the first time they skied a black diamond, or the first time they skied a mogul run, they probably had that same sense of fear before doing it, but they had to do it. And so, you know, and our demographic, you know, I mean, it's nice to see young people on the call, like, but I mean, our 32,000 members in PSIA, and the average age is probably 55. You know, I'm second time on the PSIA national team as an Alpine member, and I'm still the youngest Alpine member on the team. So like, I'm trying out for a third term, and I'm not going to be the youngest this time, hopefully. So, you know, I don't know, hopefully that answered your question, but yeah, I think connecting them to the fundamentals and showing them the progression, they kind of start to go, oh, I don't have to get air in the half pipe. I can just, you know, hang out in the transition and learn how to ride it and work my way up. They assume they have to boost 20 feet out for some reason, and I don't know why.
Totally. I think it kind of goes the other way as well. It's, I mean, I think it's maybe something that we have particularly a lot in the UK is the dry slope facilities that we have with snowflex slopes, which are fantastic for freestyle progression. Been talking about half pipes, you know, most of the slopes have a quarter pipe at the bottom, but it's a bit of a challenge because the lift is on one side, so it's easy to just keep spinning one way. You know, so there's not so much incentive to spin the more difficult way. But yeah, getting actually, you know, learning more forward skiing down different terrain is, you know, kind of linking the freestyle into a more all-round skiing is kind of another link. And I think that the stuff you're talking about applies there. And I guess free ride's kind of a nice, you know, connection there. If somebody's all about the park, you know, looking at free ride as a way to develop more all-round skiing, and you never know, it might go the other way. You might have freestylers end up going to racing as well. More than know.
Yeah, that's easier to the sell to get park, you know, kids that grew up in the park and that was all they did, to like get them to learn how to ski, because, you know, I mean, park and pipe is just, it's not sustainable. It's like gymnastics. I can do it until I'm in my mid-20s. I can still do it now, but I'm not doing what I did, you know, 10 years ago. But then they're like, oh, I want to learn how to go ski powder, you know, and it's like, yeah, now you need to learn how to ski. Like, if you guys remember Tanner Hall when he was 15, terrible skier, but he was super bendy and could do all the flips. And now, like, he's going full send in Big Mountain, and, you know, people can't keep up with him because he learned how to ski better. So, yeah. And Glenn Plake, I did a webinar with him, and, you know, he's gone through the process of, you know, extreme skier to level 1, 2, 3, because of all the stuff he was doing with some guiding, and then he tried out to be an examiner, and we brought him on ed staff, and now he's like, oh my God, my career, had I known this my career would have been that much better, And I mean, these like, so getting buy-in there, like it's pretty easy. It's just people need to be, open to listening and not just like, stuck in their ways.
I was going to ask, if you got anything, say someone has the fundamentals down, but it's a mental block that's really stopping them, sort of what the best way of overcoming that is? Is it working outside the park, breaking it down, or?
Yeah, starting outside. I mean, like the nice thing about where I live, we have a Woodward facility. So like I can take kids into the trampolines, like, and teach them and build up some, all the way to the point where they're doing it with ski boots on and roller skis, going into a foam pit. And I mean, that alone is really, really helped. And I mean, there's times where like sometimes you never get past that block, and honestly that person may realize that that's when this is no longer their thing. They're like, I've hit my peak, and it's not a bad thing, I mean, to have that like risk versus reward. But I mean, for those athletes or people that like are trying to make a thing out of it, it's like, I mean, we do have some models like the fear model, the scarf model. Again, if I can figure out how to get you guys this digital content, like there is a lot of how to manage those emotions, and also like, because a lot of it's I mean, they're excited, but like I don't know if you guys have ever felt like when I'm excited to do something or when I think I'm in trouble feels really the same as far as my body's concerned, so it's like, you get that call from your mom, it's like, we need to talk, and you go into, oh my God, what just happened? And then I get a call from Greg, it's like, hey, we're going out tonight. I get the same feeling, like, but one makes me more excited than the other, but like as far as like what my body is registering feels the same. So we do, I mean, it's a lot of managing emotions. And like the nice thing about like coaching programs versus like a one-day lesson with somebody, you get to know them, you get to know their emotions, and you can see it coming, and you can kind of distract them. Like I remember the first time I went upside down, and it had been like 2 years because Vail bought us, so I wasn't allowed to go upside down in uniform anymore. And then I was in southern Argentina at an event, and like I knew I was going to do it, but I was scared shitless at the moment. So I went over to a buddy of ours, Chris Hargrave. I don't know if you guys have had Chris on this, but Greg knows Chris. And I was like, hey man, I'm going to do this. I need you to help me right now. And he knew me, he knew my emotions, and he talked me through it. And I mean, for me, it was like, he was like, all right, what are you going to do? And I told him, he's like, all right, how you dropping in? I was like, okay. And then we just broke it down step by step. And for me, that's what it was like, and then I've been at events with like Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown. Gus Kenworthy, like those guys. Like Bobby is a nervous competitor. Like, I mean, he sits down for like 3 seconds and then he like has to go for a run, like he's just, but if you watch the dude ski, you're like, holy crap. But like when you see him in person, like before something happens, he is nervous and all he has to do is keep moving. If he stays still, he freezes, and then he's just like, and then he goes like, whereas like Tom Wallish is sitting there at the start gate, like cheering everybody on. You're just like, oh my God, Tom. Like, so it's different for everybody, but yeah, I mean, learn emotions and learn with like how to recognize and then help people kind of through them. But it really comes down to being able to calm down enough to do it, because I mean, how many, Ron Burgundy, or not Ron Burgundy, what, Talladega Nights, he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. He's just standing there like, it's like, so I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, recognizing emotions and long programs help. Day of stuff, you may not be able to get past it. And it's, I mean, if you get one day to work with somebody and they're like, dude, I got 2 more hours. We gotta do this. And they're frozen and you may not be able to break through that barrier in that day. But
we've actually got Chris coming up in a couple of weeks. Chris Hargraves has a very unique ability to be able to break down tricks and how people think about them. Chris was the person who tried to get me to talked me into doing my first backflip off just a side hit into a track. Terrified. But what he does, he really focuses more, gets you hyper focus on movements rather than actually what you're about to hit or trying to do. You're not thinking about the box you're trying to backlip, you're thinking about the movements that you're about to do to get you to do that thing. And he's got a very unique way of getting you to focus on purely your movements and what you need to do rather than the outcomes of what might happen when you don't do that. So, Jason, possibly a question for Chris when he comes up. He's pretty damn good at that kind of psychology as well.
No, yeah. If I forget to ask, will you remind me if anyone does?
I'll send him a
We'll
note.
try our best, yeah.
He's a big Star Wars fan. You guys can do something Star Warsy. He'd probably cry on you.
Introduce him to the Duel of Fates theme tune. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, he and I nerd out about Star Wars all the time. I think that's the most I talk to him is sending him like Baby Yoda memes lately.
I've got a question that's actually for Roddy. Roddy had asked this question last week, and I'm going to throw it there for him. Was that Roddy was asking about the transition between instructor to coach, and what would be would this be right, Roddy? What was the best way of going from the transition from instructor to coach?
Yeah, I guess it's so I've the coaching that I've done as opposed to instructing per se in the past has mostly been kind of introduction to freestyle stuff and sort of tying in kind of getting racers started on freestyle sort of thing. And yeah, I started working with young people who are doing more, often more than I can do as well. So I guess I've got a lot of good mentors around me, and I think we're doing okay. But yeah, I guess just generally kind of interested to hear coaching chat and yeah, thinking about getting the same kind of confidence that I have as an instructor in my coaching as well.
So you're looking to be, how do you go from your instructor to a coach? So the nice thing about going from instructor to coach is we're doing all the same stuff, but you get more time. You know, I mean, you get to know the athletes, you get to start to recognize their cues and how they learn, and you get to build that up, which is amazing. Whereas like when I get, a half-day lesson, it's like, all right, I got 3 hours. I got to get to know you. What are your goals, your motivations? What skill sets do you bring to the table? All right, now we got to teach, and I got to figure out how to teach you specifically, and then it's like, sweet, now we're done. Whereas you get to, I don't know what your program's going to look like or how much time you get with them, but I mean, sometimes you get early season stuff. You get to communicate with them beforehand. You get to do some dry land training or on your false slopes, so you get to spend time, get to know them, and like, don't rush that, let them, because they're nervous when they meet you, they're showing up kind of like tie on meeting the parents for the first time, like I'm not a dirtbag, I promise, and then but then over the course of a few weeks they loosen up and you get to meet their personality, who's the cool kid, who's the quiet one that's actually probably better than everybody but is nervous and doesn't want to talk, who deals with emotions through like comedy versus internal, and just take notes, and learn and get to know them. And then I do a couple of things. One, and this helps me with that, is I ask them who their favorite pro athlete is. So and then I mean sometimes like I'll ask for like a book report, not really, but like kinda. And so like if they tell me that they like I don't know, Jeremy Jones or like Simon Dumont or Travis Pastrana, you know, I'm like, all right, what do you like about them? Like, why is that your, you know, and it's those, they usually give you answers like that show their personality, you know, like, oh, he set the world record for this, and he does, you know, like Travis Pastrana, like he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life, super humble, shreds on a bike, shreds on a board, jumps out of airplanes without a parachute, you know, and it's just like, but he's like the nicest and humble person I've ever met, you know, and so like if you start to see like, all right, well, why do you like Travis? Like, well, he drives Subaru WRXs, he rides bikes, and it's like, oh, so you like the versatility of Travis, you know, and so you get to know the kids a little bit that way. And then I also write down, like, what are their goals? Like, what do you want to achieve this season? Because then that also tells me, you know, who's super ambitious. So, like, I had one kid that was, like, borderline okay at skiing, like, that wanted to learn doubles, you know? And then, like, but watching him on a trampoline, I was like, holy crap, this kid knows where he is in the air. I was like, but you're terrible at skiing right now. So, like, you know, and so, like, but super ambitious and motivated, and honestly, like, his awareness of his skiing ability was outweighed by his enthusiasm to do tricks. So like the ego was bigger than the ability situation, but that told me that, you know. And then I get the one kid that's like, oh, I want to learn how to do like SWAC 3, and I'm like, really? That's it? Like, you've got the other ones. Why is that just one? You want to learn one trick this year that you already know how to do like 3 out of 4 threes, and that's your goal? Okay. So like then, you know, they're kind of timid, and you get to learn their personality through some questions. And then, but I mean, it's, you know, have a plan. Like, I think, especially if you're working with athletes that want to compete, you know, like, how far do you want to take this, you know, and get the parents involved, and, you know, because that's what you can do coaching. Ski instructing, it's, you know, I mean, you're managing the parents. You're like, I want my kid to be carving down black runs by the end of the day, and they show up, and I'm like, he's got his left boot on his right foot. Like, and he skis in a pizza. Like, you know, so get the parents involved, tell them the milestones, be like, all right, well, here's what we're, you know, and put them on a plan. And it's way easier to coach as long as you take the time to get to know the kids, you know, and know how to engage with them, because just getting to know them, you learn so much more that, you know, you can get them, you know, back to Jason's question, you know, get them over those hurdles because you can manage them. So yeah, I mean, coaching's way easier, but I'd say, yeah, who are their role models, what are their goals, and then, you know, spend a few weeks getting to know them, because they do evolve over the course of a few weeks once you actually get to loosen them up and engage with them.
Something I'd yes, so I think I've got quite a few good ideas there. I think talking about roles, I think yeah, that's something that was fairly new to me last season, was spending time off snow, doing games, drills, kind of stuff, which was, yeah, pretty fun. Lots of football and stuff, and yeah, I think that's something that I'll try and get in there, is the drills. I mean, yeah, just seasons are so random in Scotland that we you know, can end up spending quite a lot of time off snow. So yeah, good to do that. We've got some yeah, it's called the Futures Programme, which is looking at yeah, movements off snow as well. So we've been doing a bit of that. But yeah, I think the group that I'd been with, I think part of the motivation a lot of the time was it was kids who didn't like the seriousness of racing, and maybe, you know, the less kind of driven parents as well as the kids. So yeah, I put together I actually shared it with the guys here, a kind of pathway, so an A4 printout, kind of sort of like a flow chart, and really to have the idea being that this is to spark ideas, and to, you know, to think about where you might want to take things, and yeah, kind of link in you know, the parallels between racing and freestyle. You know, for example, I think you brought up a few of those, you one of the things was, if you get good at doing front swaps in a box, then that's going to be great for moguls, for instance. So yeah, just to try and help kind of set some goals. I think something that the majority consensus was a lot of the time saying, like, what do you want to do? What do you really want to go for? And it's like, oh, we just want to go skiing, which is cool. I feel that way a lot of the time too. But yeah, just trying to bring out some of that. But yeah, cheers.
Yeah, and it's funny, is a lot like the outfits are way more comfortable than ski racing. Nothing like their Lycra, but the kids that want to be just as good and in the freestyle world, if they're competing, it's just as much training. They're just as athletic. They need to be just as strong. Like, so they may get into it because it seems easier, but I'd argue that when I was coaching freestyle, like, those kids got more laps in than the race kids because they didn't have to wait in line for somebody to get 2/3 of the way down the course before they could go. It was jumps clear next, and it was a lot more repetition. So it's funny that, yeah, they come in like, ski racers are stuck up. And I'm like, yeah, kind of. But yeah, it's good. And, hopefully, like, you get a program that'll pay you for some off time. But, I definitely spent a lot of free time doing dry land. And the parents might send me a tip here and there and appreciated it if North Star wasn't paying me. But, it's great to keep them engaged because we can, I love the coaching. Also, something that, is you're creating people that, like, I don't know if you guys have been watching politics. I'm not trying to get super political, but there's so many offended people out there. These kids, when they compete, there's first, second, third, and then you're not on the podium, and they get used to that at a young age. And, so when they apply for colleges, if they don't get in, they're not shattered because they've lost before, and that's okay. Or if they don't get that job, the first job they wanted, that's, so you're growing some life skills, and, like, that's something that, getting into coaching, you can also help with. And that's just something that, we talked about a little bit here with the team that I oversee. So yeah, it's another bonus.
If I could pick up on that, sorry to if somebody else wanted to ask a question there, but talking of the life skills and kind of the off snow training, and sort of cross training as well. I think you talked about rollerblading things as well, which I think's a good crossover. That's certainly kind of where I kind of came in with sort of the time skiing with rollerblading. But something I've been thinking about a bit is really trying to encourage the crossover with mountain biking, because as well as being cross training and useful purely from that point of view, and being fun, which is really the whole point, I guess. But is hey Pat, I'm just on this call with the Glencoe group just now.
Did we lose him?
I think we got a little crosswise.
That's actually that's my wife calling there. That's Patsy calling. I'm gonna go, but yeah, I was basically just going to talk about how that's a good link to getting paid to work for for kids who are kind of at that age where they're going to be getting their first jobs and getting that link to which will help have a sustainable career in skiing as well, if that's where people are looking to go, having something that's going to make some money in the off season. But I'm gonna jump off and speak to Patsy just now. She's actually in hospital just now, so. Good. Yeah, well, do good to see everyone, and yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's brilliant.
Cheers, Roddy. Bye for now.
Cheers.
Well, I'll just briefly jump in here and say a big thank you to Ryan for being with us on this session here. It's just going through the whole thing, bird's eye view, seeing it put into practice in real life, getting some like not literally live videos, but not just photos, really helps bring it to life, even if it was a little bit icky on some of them. He bent his arm. I'm like, what even is that?
I didn't know you could do that.
I'm just
It
imagining
wasn't
that
even
head.
a little
Like,
bit. It's fine now.
You know, you'll be fine. Get back up there. Go do it again, but better. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit stop on the recording just now.